Hands where I can see them. Stop resisting. Why is this happening? The world narrowed under flashing lights as the crowd watched. Phones raised, power pressing down on one woman who had done nothing wrong. A routine stop twisted into a public struggle, revealing how quickly authority can turn dangerous when assumptions take control. This moment wasn't the end. It was the spark. The night everyone thought would stay quiet became the story of officers confronting a black woman and being stunned by her refusal to break. Watch how this moment unfolded. And comment your city below to show where you're watching from. She had learned to measure her days by routines, not dreams, because routines were predictable and dreams had a way of disappointing people like her. Every morning before sunrise, she left her small apartment, coffee cooling in the cup holder, uniform neatly folded on the passenger seat. The city still slept as she drove toward the university, a place admired for its ideals but never built with her in mind. She worked there as a janitor, trusted with keys to rooms where important conversations happened, yet rarely trusted with a glance or a greeting. Her job was simple, demanding, and invisible. She cleaned offices filled with awards, lecture halls echoing with theories about justice, and hallways lined with portraits of respected men. One professor stood out, a man known for speaking about fairness and equality, his words praised and recorded. She often scrubbed the floors beneath his podium long after the applause ended. To him, she was part of the background, like the lights she turned off at night. Outside work, her life stayed quiet by design. She avoided attention, followed rules carefully, and reminded herself that caution was a form of survival. Family calls always ended the same way, with warnings disguised as love. Be careful. Don't argue. Get home safe. She listened because she understood the cost of being misunderstood. That evening felt ordinary. Her shift ran late, muscles aching as she locked the last door and walked to her car. The drive home stretched through familiar streets, illuminated by traffic lights. She obeyed without question. Her thoughts drifted toward rest, toward another early morning waiting ahead. She didn't notice the patrol car at first. She didn't sense how quickly normalcy could turn fragile. Somewhere behind her, authority moved closer, guided not by her actions, but by assumptions older than the road itself. She kept driving, unaware that this night was quietly preparing to demand more than her silence. The flashing lights cut through the darkness, like a warning she felt before she fully understood it. Her heart jumped as she slowed down, signaled, and pulled over with practiced care. She took a breath, steadying her hands on the wheel, reminding herself that fear could be mistaken for guilt. Everything she did was deliberate, measured, visible. The officers approached with confidence that felt heavy rather than reassuring. Their presence crowded her space, their attention fixed not on the vehicle, but on her. She sensed judgment before it was justified, suspicion before it was spoken. Instructions came quickly, layered with impatience, and she followed them without hesitation. Experience had taught her that compliance was not optional. Cars passed by, their drivers barely glancing at the scene. To the outside world, it looked routine, unremarkable. To her, every second felt loaded with risk. The air pressed in, thick with uncertainty. She could feel the imbalance of power settling over her, quiet but absolute. The tone shifted without explanation. What began as control edged toward aggression. Movements sharpened, pauses shortened. She was asked to step out, and she did, feet touching the pavement with careful precision. The night felt colder now, wider, less forgiving. Her pulse thudded in her ears as she stood exposed beneath streetlights. A small crowd gathered at a distance, curiosity pulling them closer. Phones lifted, lenses pointed. Instead of easing the tension, the attention seemed to harden it. Authority demanded dominance, and the presence of witnesses turned the moment into a display. The officers' actions grew more forceful, their patience thinner. Her thoughts flashed to the campus she cleaned. 2 lessons about justice spoken by men protected by titles. Those words felt hollow here. Out on the roadside, there were no lectures, no applause, only fear and the knowledge that fairness was fragile. Then the situation slipped further. A movement was misread or perhaps simply ignored. Control turned into restraint. Hands grabbed, balance faltered, and panic surged. She felt the ground tilt beneath her, pain flaring sharp and sudden. Fear exploded into something urgent and alive. This was no longer about a traffic stop. It was about survival. She realized compliance had reached its limit, that silence was no longer a shield. As pressure closed in and the crowd watched, she faced a truth she had always known but never confronted. Endure quietly or resist and accept whatever followed. The night seemed to pause, waiting, everything fractured at once. The space around her collapsed into noise, movement, and pain. Force replaced control, and fear sharpened into something raw and instinctive. Her body reacted before her thoughts could catch up, driven by a need older than caution. Weight pressed down, breath caught. And the world narrowed to the struggle to remain upright. This was the moment she had spent her life trying to avoid. The point where obedience stopped mattering. The injustice she feared was no longer approaching. It was happening here. Now, phones rose higher. The crowd drew closer. Sirens echoed somewhere far away, too distant to promise safety. What had been private authority became public spectacle. Every movement felt amplified, every second heavy with consequence. In that instant, she understood that this was not only about her. It was about every time fear had replaced dignity, every time silence had been mistaken for acceptance. Her resistance was not anger, but desperation. It shattered expectations written for her long before this night. The officers hesitated, stunned by what they had not anticipated. Power wavered for a heartbeat, just enough for the world to notice. The night held its breath as uncertainty spread through the crowd. Under the harsh glow of lights and the weight of countless eyes, one question hung in the air. Would this become another story buried and forgotten? Or the moment the truth finally refused to stay quiet? The night eventually released its grip, but it left marks that would not fade. She was allowed to leave not because justice arrived, but because the damage had already been done. Her drive home felt unreal, hands trembling as she followed the same streets that no longer felt safe. She made it back, but the sense of security she once clung to was gone. In the days that followed, the incident settled into her body and mind. Sleep fractured. Ordinary sounds carried echoes of fear. Yet clarity came with the pain. Silence had never protected her. Compliance had never guaranteed dignity. What happened was not rare or exceptional. It was familiar to too many. Footage circulated. Conversations sparked. Some questioned her, others questioned the system for the first time. The professor continued lecturing about justice beneath clean lights, while the janitor carried the memory of bruises no theory could explain. The contrast was no longer subtle. It was undeniable. Her story did not end with instant justice or easy answers. It ended with awareness, and awareness mattered. Because stories like hers repeat themselves, changing faces and locations, demanding attention again and again. How many lives must be shaken before fairness becomes real? How many nights must end in fear before accountability begins? If this story stayed with you, don't turn away. Share it. Reflect on it. Subscribe for more stories that refuse to be ignored.